Exposed. The spine-chilling secrets of a haunted school and the cursed mystery of Forbidden Room 6. Jessica never believed in ghosts until now. The air in their suburban town felt wrong, thick with whispers of tragedy and trauma, as she found herself standing before the abandoned Ridgewood High. Time had left it a husk, a crumbling monument to broken futures. The stories, dark and chilling, spoke of Room 6, sealed tight after a horrific fire that took lives that might still linger, restless souls trapped within. Every evening, as twilight draped its shadow over their home, strange things began to unfold. The lights flickered in eerie patterns, taking form at the corner of her vision before disappearing entirely. Soft knocks echoed through the walls at night, syncopating with the frantic beating of her heart. In the classroom, Jessica would find cryptic messages scrawled across the whiteboard, warning her of something she didn't understand, but feared nonetheless. Then one night, everything fell apart. Alex, her adventurous 16-year-old, had been drawn to that place. "Mom, it's just an old school. I'll be fine," he said, his face glowing with the thrill of urban legends and dares. But the look in his eyes sent icy tendrils of dread curling around her heart. And then he disappeared. Hours passed, each one more agonizing than the last as worry gnawed at her insides. Maybe he just lost track of time, but deep inside, a voice echoed louder. He's in danger. The town's dark chatter about Ridgewood now turned sinister in her mind. As she searched for answers, images of frantic parents at community meetings haunted her. Eyes shifted as she brought up her concerns, everyone too afraid to acknowledge what festered in the school's shadows. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In her quest, she sought out Mr. Collins, the local historian, his own dark ties with Ridgewood looming large. "You have to understand," he said, voice tinged with regret. "Some doors are better left closed." Each word only added to the fog of anxiety gathering around her mind. A trapdoor had been found in Room 6. The town's collective past was festering with secrets that connected them all. Her neighbors, her friends' figures cloaked in the mundane, hiding behind perfectly manicured yards. Chilling truths began to resurface. Betrayal, loss, darkness. Fear pulsed in her veins as she realized that while Alex might be safe or perhaps lost, the real danger was much closer. As despair gnawed at her resolve, Jessica stood at the entrance of Ridgewood High, her breath coming in short, cold bursts. A chill crept down her spine, the ominous silence swelling around her like a hungry beast waiting to pounce. With a deep breath, she pushed open the creaking door to Room 6. Darkness swallowed her whole as shadows coiled around her like snakes. Then, just as she brushed her fingers against the hidden latch of the trapdoor, a heavy thud resonated behind her. Heart racing, she spun, the flashlight illuminating a figure emerging from the shadowed abyss. A scream clawed at her throat, but it wouldn't come. Instead, she stood frozen, terror locking her limbs, caught in the suffocating grasp of dread. What truth would be unveiled as the living and the haunted collided? The night's chilling secrets were ready to escape the darkness. But would Jessica discover the truth and rescue her son before the horror consumed her? The figure stepped forward, a mere silhouette at first, before the beam of light caught its features. A girl, no older than Alex, with dark eyes that seemed to glimmer with knowing. Jessica's breath hitched. "Who are you?" she managed to whisper, voice barely a thread against the oppressive silence. The girl didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tilted her head, and in a voice that was both soft and filled with urgency, she said, "You shouldn't be here. It's not safe." Past the girl, swirling shadows danced, pulsing as if alive. Jessica's mind raced. Could this be some twisted vision or a trap set by the darkness around her? "Alex, where is he?" The name clawed its way out of her throat, desperation lacing each syllable. The girl's gaze flickered towards the trapdoor Jessica had touched, her expression both fearful and pleading. You mustn't open it. It's not what you think, but Jessica felt the pull, the irresistible urge to unveil the secrets hidden beneath. I need to save my son, she cried, driven by a mother's instinct, pushing past fear. She lunged towards the door, but the girl was quicker, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength. Don't. The girl's grip tightened, her eyes widening. They'll awaken if you do. The mention of they sent a chill down Jessica's spine, the sheer weight of the warning grounding her momentarily. What do you mean? What lives down there? A whisper of rustling echoed from the darkness, like wind weaving through the cracked walls of room 6. The walls felt as though they were pressing in, the air thickening suffocatingly around them. The girl's voice sank, barely audible, as she spoke. The ones who were lost in the fire. They're waiting and they want to come back. Breathless, Jessica felt the world spin. The fire that had sealed the room, which had taken Alex's life in the local myths, could it really have trapped something more sinister inside? My son is down there, she shouted, her fear morphing to anguish. I have to find him. I can't leave him. The girl's face twisted with an expression Jessica couldn't decipher. Was it pity? Then you need to listen. The door binds them. If you release it, you might lose him forever. Behind them, an eerie wind howled, swirling the shadows into an angry frenzy. The flashlight flickered, casting grotesque shapes on the walls. Desperation ignited Jessica's resolve. She had to know. What do I have to do? Find the key, the girl implored, eyes darting to the darkness beyond the door. But not just any key. The one that binds the souls to the room. Without that, you'll be entrapped too. Jessica felt her heart race faster at the looming threat of both Alex and herself losing to the shadows beneath. Where is it? I don't know, the girl admitted, the hope in her eyes dimming. But if you're willing to risk it, the truth awaits in the other rooms at that moment. Another thud echoed, louder and more insistent. The shadows quivered, materializing into shapes too indistinct to grasp, but undeniably there. The walls began to vibrate, a cruel whispering filling the air. What is that? Jessica gasped, turning back towards the girl, her skin prickling. They're coming for you. Before Jessica could respond, the girl seemed to dissolve into the dark, leaving only the stark reality of room 6 behind, a haze of dread swirling through the air. The shadows twisted and contorted, taking steps towards her as she grasped the latch once more, uncertainty gnawing at her. Was she truly prepared to face whatever horrors lay in wait? The pulse of shadows crescendoed around her. Fear mixed with necessity propelled her forward. I'll find you, Alex, she yelled, hammering against the latch with blazing determination. And as she threw open the trapdoor, a chilling rush of cold air swept over her, and an unbearable darkness poured out like a flood, pulling her into its depths. What awaited her in that abyss? The haunting answers, or the same fate as those trapped souls? Jessica stumbled as the darkness enveloped her, a swirling sheath that seemed to claw at her skin as if alive. The cold air carried whispers, a chorus of voices merging into an unsettling hush that echoed her name. Jessica, her heart raced, each pulse thundering against her chest like a desperate drum. She couldn't see anything, not even her own hands, but she could feel the dampness of the ground beneath her. It was uneven, filled with unseen crevices that threatened to trip her up as she pushed forward. The thought of Alex spurred her on, a flicker of light in that pitch-black prison. Alex, she called, her voice quaking with fear. The sound of her own name returning to her was a cruel reminder of her solitude. The shadows shifted, coiling around her. Deep, guttural sounds emerged from the depths, like a creature roused from a long slumber. Ignoring the instinct to retreat, she paused to listen. The whispers grew louder, threading through her mind. They're coming for you, one voice hissed, sending a shiver down her spine. No, not yet, she shouted defiantly into the void. If lost souls teetered on the brink of the material world, she couldn't let them have her. She needed the key. Where was it? With a shaky breath, She remembered the girl's last words about the other rooms. Jessica fought against the despair threatening to drown her, reaching out to her surroundings, her fingers brushing against the cold, crumbling bricks that lined the walls. She turned, inching her way along until her shoulder collided with something hard, a door. Panic seized her as she felt the handle. The pulse of a heartbeat behind the wood resonated within her. This door, the weight of it felt heavy and foreboding. Her own fear fought against the desperate longing to find her son. Just check, she urged herself, the tension mounting as she twisted the knob. It creaked, resisting her pull as if sentient, unwilling to relent. With a forceful shove, it burst open, the door swinging inward to reveal a narrow, flickering hallway drenched in shadow. Jessica stepped in, her instincts screaming. The air was stale, laced with an acrid smoke that brought memories of the fire flooding back. She looked down the corridor. Rooms lined each side, their doors gaping like empty mouths eager to swallow her whole. An unexplainable urge pulled her toward the first door on the left, its splintered frame beckoning her closer. What's in there? A doubt nagged at her, but as she hesitated, the whispers intensified, slithering into her ears like ice. Help us find us, swallowing hard. She griped the door and pushed it open. The hinges screamed in protest. A wave of terror cascaded over her as the dim light revealed charred remnants of what once was a classroom frozen in time. Desks lay scattered like fallen soldiers, and ash drifted lazily through the air. And then she saw it, a glint from beneath the seat of a partially burned desk. Hope ignited within her. Could it be the key? She felt like she was being pulled from both ends, the shadows squeezing tighter. She had the sudden laughter peeled through the classroom, high-pitched and chilling, wrapping around Jessica like a noose. It echoed, sounding familiar yet alien, reminding her of Alex's innocent giggle before it all changed. Help us, please. Don't leave. Jessica froze, a cold sweat trickling down her back. She turned to escape, but the shadows shifted, a wall of darkness blocking her exit. You have to stay, they insisted in unison, their voices thick with malice. The laughter faded, replaced by an ominous silence that thrummed with expectation. Who are you? She cried, sensing they were closing in. With us, forever, they whispered, voices slithering through the cracks of her sanity. With her heart pounding under the weight of their presence, she lunged for the glimmer beneath the desk. Gripping what felt like metal, she ripped it free only to find a cold, rusted key, embellished with twisted, otherworldly designs. The shadows recoiled, shrinking away for an instant at the sight of the key. She had it, but at what cost? Now use it, the voices shrieked, urgency pouring from their tones. Sickened by their desperation yet fueled by her own need, she felt a surge of doubt. Would this key save her son? Or would it seal their fate forever? Jessica stood on the precipice of ruin, caught between the darkness and the key, two paths diverging right before her. What awaited her if she took that step forward? Into the heart of the shadow. The moment Jessica clasped the key, a jolt of icy electricity surged through her, coursing like a current of fear down her spine. The voices raged, an uproar of longing and fury swirling in the air. Use it. They persisted, the urgency rising to a fever pitch, each word laced with desperation. But what lay behind the door she needed to open? The promise of safety, or the abyss? With trembling fingers, she gripped the key tighter, its sharp edges biting into her palm. The shadows quivered, seemingly aware of her hesitation, and their whispers morphed into menacing growls. You have to make a choice now. Time blurred, a shallow whirlpool dragging her further into the darkness. Each blink of her eyes felt like an eternity, pressing her to decide would she back away into the enveloping gloom or take the plunge into potential salvation. A low, wailing shriek erupted from the corridor, twisting around her like an angry storm. Jessica's breath hitched, an urge to bolt clawing at her insides, yet the cries of the lost souls clawed at her heart. Images of Alex's innocent eyes flooded her mind, his unshed tears a mirror to her own anguish. Fueled by love, Jessica shoved aside her fears, spinning on her heel just as she heard the creak of floorboards behind her. She could not waste a moment. Swinging the key toward the darkened doorway at the end of the hall, she could feel another presence looming closer. Heart pounding, she raced back to the door, the familiar chorus of whispers now a guttural growl, threatening to collapse upon her. "Open it," they boomed, excitement thrumming beneath their chilling tones. Jessica reached the door, its ominous wood splintered and cracked. She thrust the key into the lock, their cursed wails rising higher, blending with the thudding of her heart. With a deep breath, she twisted the key. The door burst open with a creak that reverberated through the hall like a banshee-esque wail. Jessica stumbled inside, barely able to process what lay before her. It was a room untouched by time, an inexplicable contrast to the ruin she had just traversed. Walls displayed peeling paint, littered with faded drawings of children's laughter, a semblance of innocence shrouded in decay. A chalkboard stood, ominously covered with scratch marks and strange symbols, the kind that made her skin crawl. Each letter seemed to shift, alive with a wicked energy. Suddenly, a sound broke through her reverie, a soft sob, unmistakably human. The breath froze in her throat as she turned, eyes wide with dread. In the corner, a figure huddled small, frail. "Please help me," the voice whimpered, familiar yet twisted. The shadows trembled at the brink of her perception, coiling with unsettling anticipation. Was it Alex? No, the thought sliced through her like glass, panic gripping her heart. "Can't be him. Help us." The figure raised its head. Jessica felt a chill run deep into her bones. The face was a haunting, contorted reflection of Alex, eyes wide and pleading. "You have to save us, before it's too late." Terror twisted in her gut like a vice, and she staggered back. The door behind her slammed shut, sealing her fate. The bleak laughter erupted once more, resonating through the air as panic gripped her heart. The twitching shadows shifted, revealing others lurking in the recesses, eyes glinting with sorrow and malice. "You must choose, Jessica. Do you save him or join the lost?" Her mind raced, limbs trapped in a maze of indecision. The faces of the lost children blurred together, their mouths opening in silent screams. "What did you release?" The figures chorused, terror morphing into fury. I didn't mean," she gasped, as the room began to pulse with energy, alive and breathing, drawing her deeper into its anguish. The deeper she fell, the more choices seemed to fade into the dark. The shadows tightened around her. Desperation surged like flames licking at her soul. "Help us!" they screamed, the cacophony intensifying, with a last glimpse at the echo of her son's face. She knew she had to make her decision. Use the key, the voices roared. What if it meant the end of everything she loved? As she grappled with the key still clutched tightly in her hand, a new realization dawned. There was a way to set them all free, but it would demand a price steeped in darkness. Would she be willing to pay it? Jessica's mind raced, frantically trying to grasp the weight of the decision looming over her like a guillotine. The faces of the lost witnessed her straining to resurrect the faintest flicker of hope. Was it even possible to save them all? Was she strong enough to wield the key's power? The shadows pressed closer, their cold breath ghosting her skin. "Time is running out," they taunted, their voices growing louder, clawing at her sanity. "Choose. Why can't you just be quiet?" she shouted, panic tinging her voice. The room was spinning, vibrant energy coiling around her like a snake preparing to strike. The sobbing child, an echo of her own world, forced a choice upon her whether she was ready or not. "Alex," she whispered, desperation pooling in her chest. The figure nodded, tears cascading down its face. But was it really him? "Help us!" The chorus of lost children surged, voice intertwining in a desperate melody, a cacophony of heartache. The walls surrounding them vibrated, shaking with an ancient fury. Gritting her teeth, Jessica clenched the key like a lifeline. What if I use it? What will happen? Freedom comes with a price, the shadows hissed, their laughter cruel yet tempting. You could join them, become one of us or save him, but lose everything you've ever known. The walls pulsed as the figures shifted, hollering, spectral bodies throbbing with anguish. Jessica's heart raced. She couldn't take solace in the fact that she might find Alex, but she recognized the distorted faces. They were other children lost, forgotten in time. Choose, they pleaded, their hands reaching out. With a sudden resolve, she turned to the chalkboard, the strange symbols swirling like a tempest. It was a summoning, no doubt, her spirit reeling in understanding. The key held more than the promise of escape. It tethered her to their agony, anchoring her in torment. "Okay, I'll do it," she shouted, spilling the words like an incantation, the energy in the air crackling dangerously. As if answering her urgency, the room fell silent, but the silence was deafening. The shadows dimmed, holding their breath in anticipation. Whatever was to happen next would change her forever. "Use the key," echoed the lost children, a terrifying yet exhilarating command. But as she raised the key, an unseen weight pressed down upon her from the ceiling. The figure's expressions morphed from hope to dread. "You don't know what you're unleashing." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, electricity arcing in every direction. A sound like thunder rumbled throughout the ancient hall, vibrating through her very bones. With a drawn breath, eyes wide with raw determination, Jessica plunged the key deep into the chalkboard. Bright light erupted, blinding her momentarily. Colors exploded in a chaotic dance, reds, yellows, and blues swirling into a maelstrom of brilliance that felt alive. She could only glimpse the tortured faces twisting in the light, but one thing became painfully clear. The choice would demand more than she anticipated from the depths of the luminous chaos. A shriek cut through the air, unending and shrill. "No, not like this." In that instant, she felt the tether of reality slip. Gritting her teeth, she clung desperately to Alex's echo in the storm. Would the blinding light consume her too? And if she failed, what would happen to Alex? Her grip turned shaky, the key twisting in her grasp like an eel trying to escape. And then an all-consuming darkness engulfed her, vast and terrifying. As despair wrapped around her like a shroud, she realized it was not just her freedom at stake. "Jessica," echoed a familiar voice, barely audible over the roiling chaos. "You have to undo it. You have to." Panic struck. Could she really turn back now? The abyss whispered sweetly, luring her deeper into its grasp. With heart pounding, she prepared for the aftermath. The question hung in the air, electrifying and potent. Was she ready to embrace the darkest side of salvation? The light flickered, revealing an ominous truth she hadn't anticipated, one that sent an icy claw of fear spiraling through her. As the world chilled around her, she understood she might have awakened something far worse than what was lost. But what was the cost? The world twisted and throbbed with a palpable pulse, and Jessica felt herself pulled apart by the swirling vortex of light. It bit at her skin like icy fingers, and the morphed faces of the children floated closer, their mouths moving, though she couldn't decipher the words. "Stop! You have to stop!" she screamed, but her voice vanished into the chaos, muffled like a cry in a dream. Her hands trembled as she wrestled the key from the chalkboard's dark hold. It felt both familiar and foreign, a lifeline and a noose, woven from threads of desperate hope and bitter despair. A flaring insight struck her. She could either save Alex or doom them all. "Jessica!" The voice of the child was clearer now, echoing through the storm, urgent and pleading. "Please, you have to listen." But as she searched the glowing maelstrom for Alex, all she found were hollow eyes that begged for release. The children's anguish pulsed through the air, heavy and suffocating. Shadows that had once whispered to her now coiled around her legs like serpents, tightening their grip. "What do you want from me?" Jessica yelled, fueled by fear and frustration. "What do I have to give?" Everything, they chorused, their voices rising in a symphony of anguish, sharpening into a single note that vibrated through her core. The key vibrated violently in her hand, sparking new sensations she hadn't felt before. Pain and loss washed over her, wave after wave, as if the weight of countless souls surged against her, demanding attention. Jessica squeezed her eyes shut, drowning in memories not her own. Laughter turned to screams, joy turned to sorrow, all echoing through this bleak realm of despair. Make a choice. Another voice thundered, low and rumbling. It was as if the very walls, the very air, demanded her decision. A permeating insistence that pressed against her skull. That in that moment, Jessica felt herself standing at the precipice of two outcomes. The fading faces of lost children shimmered before her, teetering on the edge of hope and oblivion. She could not bear their pain, yet their salvation might cost her everything. The blinding light morphed again, revealing a twisting shadow behind it, a figure coalescing from the darkness. Panic surged through her veins. Was this Alex, or something more sinister? Jessica, listen to me, the figure shouted, its features sharpening into focus. It was Alex, but something was wrong. His expression twisted in anguish, his once kind eyes now darkened with despair. You have to turn it back. You don't know what you'll unleash. Turn back what? She shouted, the words punctuated with fear. What do you mean? The shadow loomed closer, the air around her thickening with unease. The key is not just binding us here. It will wake what's south lurking beneath this place, what has been waiting for you. A chill wrapped around her throat. Images of a monstrous presence stirred in the depths of her imagination. An unspeakable horror that might be waiting just beyond the veil. Was it already here? Desperation clawed at her mind. She had to make a choice, but could she trust herself to make the right one? The weight of her surroundings pressed down like lead. No, Jessica screamed, stepping back as she felt the key glowing brighter in her grasp. I can't do this. I want tea. The bright light flickered again, shifting from dazzling brilliance to unsettling darkness. The shadows dancing upon the walls grew elongated and twisted, creeping closer. Suddenly, the room was engulfed in a deafening silence, as if every specter held its breath. A shiver ran down Jessica's spine, the hairs on her neck standing on end. What now? She whispered, heart racing as she peered into the darkness, awaiting an answer that might never come. But before she could brace herself, the whispers erupted once more, louder and angrier. You will choose. You must choose. In that moment of chaos, the key felt heavier than ever, pulsing with the heartbeat of otherworldly dread. It was more than just a tool, it was a lure into unfathomable depths of terror. Jessica's heart slammed against her ribs. Each beat a drum of impending doom. What had she unleashed? What was coming for her next? As the shadows closed in, the question hummed ominously in the air: was salvation worth the risk of awakening the darkness? Jessica's fingers went numb around the key, the glow pulsating with an insistent rhythm that matched her racing heart. The shadows seemed to vibrate with life, their fluid forms undulating and shifting. Just when the silence felt unbearable, a cacophony of cries erupted from the children, drowning out all reason. Let us go. They reached out with gaunt hands, their faces twisted in eternal sorrow. You can save us. You can't listen to them. Alex's shout sliced through the chaos. They want to pull you in. We need to escape, not free them. His words pierced through her fog of fear. She clutched the key tighter, the cold metal digging into her palm. But if I don't help them, what happens? The shadows shrieked, their voices an anguished roar, spelling out the doom that would follow if she turned a blind eye. You will doom us all. No. Alex broke through, his voice a lifeline. You'll unleash a horror beyond your imagination. We're trapped. This key only opens the way for what's buried. A deep growl resonated beneath her feet, as if the very foundation of the school was trembling in anticipation. Jessica felt the air grow heavier, stifling her breath. Something was awakening, driven by the energy swirling from the key. Make your decision. The figures of the children contorted, merging into grotesque shapes. Their faces melted into anguished masks, each a twisted reminder of the innocent lives lost in this place. They were more than whispers. They were the embodiment of every tragedy that tainted the air. I can't, she screamed back, her voice cracking. The weight of despair pressed heavier on her chest. I can't be responsible for this. The key blazed, illuminating the darkened room. Shadows writhed, swirling around her as if they were seeking an opening, an invitation. In that blinding moment, a vision struck her. A monstrous shape, its eyes like twin abysses, hungry and waiting. It moved in the darkness just out of sight, sensing her doubts, her fears. "Stop," she cried, desperation pouring from every word. "Let them go." But in answer, the shadows surged, enveloping her, dragging her toward the yawning maw of darkness that promised to swallow her whole. The room seemed to expand, contracting around this growing presence. I can't. Choose," echoed the cacophony. "To save them, you must become one of us or you must unleash our nightmare." The horror twisted inside her. Jessica's mind raced. Did she care more for the trapped souls or for herself? Her heart thudded painfully. If she chose to let them go, what would be born of this madness? "No," she shouted defiantly. "I refuse to be a part of this." In a sudden surge of will, she swung the key in her hand, as if it were a weapon against the encroaching dark. The light flickered, illuminating a truth she hadn't grasped before. Her fear was her strength. It pulled her away from treachery and toward freedom. That was when everything shattered. With a blinding flash, the light erupted, and the shadows recoiled, shrieking like a chorus of banshees. Dread spiraled around Jessica, but she pressed forward, knowing she had to confront the abyss, the unknown that had grown inside her. Could facing it mean saving them all? But before she could decide, a voice, deeper and more menacing than all before, cut through the din. "You dare defy me?" The atmosphere thickened with malice. Jessica turned to see the nightmarish creature finally slithering into view, a mass of writhing darkness ebbing towards her, bearing the weight of every childish scream. A monstrous eye blinked open, unfathomable and ancient. The room felt like it was caving in around her. "Are you ready to pay the price?" And with that, a new wave of terror flooded her senses. What price would she have to pay to silence the darkness? The key pulsed violently again, urging her to decide. What had she really unleashed? What shadows lingered just beyond, waiting for her next move? As the monstrous eye penetrated her soul, Jessica felt a cold sweat trickle down her back. The shadow lunged forward, tendrils stretching like claws ready to grasp her. Time seemed to stretch, and every heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out the children's cries. "Jessica!" Alex's voice trembled, an anchor amidst the chaos. "Fight it. Remember who you are." Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage. Alex's words were life rafts tossed into a stormy sea. She couldn't let the darkness drag her down. She drew in a shaky breath, her mind scrambling for clarity. The key radiated warmth, a pulse of hope against the overwhelming dread. "Get back," she screamed, swinging the key as if it were a torch against the dark. The light flared, briefly illuminating the grotesque features of the creature before her. It recoiled, snarling a sound that vibrated deep in her bones. Somehow the key had power. That realization ignited something within her, a flicker of courage. What do you want from me?" Jessica shouted, her voice wavering but defiant. "I want your essence," the creature hissed, its voice an otherworldly rasp. "To set the children free, one must become the other." "No." A sudden wave of clarity washed over her. "I won't trade my life for theirs. They deserve better." As those words escaped, shadows pressed in closer, swarming like locusts. The walls of the room flickered with images of despair, more haunting memories playing out before her eyes, students lost in the very hallways she stood in now. Her insides twisted at the sight, and in a moment of desperation, she looked to Alex. "Can we still escape? Together?" He was fighting off the encroaching shadows, determination etched on his face. "If you can hold them back, I'll find a way to break this." Summoning every ounce of resolve, she raised the key high, letting its light slice through the dark. "I won't bow to you. I choose to fight." The creature hissed, shadows writhing violently, grasping at the light. It was a war, but she could feel it shifting. Her heart raced with the knowledge that this wasn't just a fight against the darkness. It was a fight for her own spirit, her own will. "Gather all your strength, Jessica," Alex called above the howling wind of despair. She channeled every fear, pouring it into the key. With a guttural roar, she thrust it forward, sending a wave of light bursting through the darkness. The shadow screamed, an awful sound like shattering glass, echoing in her ears. For the briefest of moments, the room brightened, the children's faces illuminated with hope. They all gazed at her, pleading yet hopeful. The shadows shivered in response to the light, cowering, held back by her fierce determination. But as quickly as the light appeared, it began to wane. The creature writhed and shrieked as it struggled to stay afloat in the light. But Jessica felt her strength fading, her energy pulled like a thread unraveling. "What will you do?" The creature spat, its voice drenched in malice. "You can't hold on to hope forever." "Watch me," Jessica breathed, summoning more. Her vision narrowed, but she glimpsed Alex charging forward, fueled by her determination. Together, they would stand against the malevolence pooling around them. Yet amid the chaos, just beyond her reach, lurked something darker, something even more enticing than the shadows. A flicker of doubt crept in. If she persisted, what if she unleashes something worse than the horror holding the children captive? "Oh God," she whispered, suddenly realizing, what if in saving them, I doom us all? A new terror gripped her throat, tightening like a noose. As the shadows surged again, Jessica stammered, I need to know the truth. What's really down there? What will happen if I refuse?" And with that final question, the shadows quivered, as if poised on the brink of revealing their darkest secret. The room's temperature dropped, a bite of icy air swirling around Jessica as she clutched the key. The creature loomed closer, its breath foul and heavy, like a dark fog enveloping her senses. Fear pulsed in her veins, thrumming with every word it rasped. "Refusal is futile," it murmured, shadows undulating in a grotesque dance at its command. "You must know the truth is worse than your worst nightmare." Jessica's heart slammed against her chest. She had to hold tight. But there, just below the surface of her fear, a glimmer of curiosity flickered. She could feel it tugging at her, urging her to give in to the creature's whispers. "What do you mean?" She shot back, refusing to let the dread seep into her voice. "Show me." The creature shrieked, the sound fracturing the air like brittle glass. Suddenly, the room shifted. The walls trembled and warped, revealing glimpses of a nightmarish landscape. Dark figures flickered at the edge of her vision. Children, their faces contorted in terror, reaching out as if begging for salvation. "Those kids, they're trapped just like you," it hissed, the shadows spilling from its mouth, swirling around Jessica's feet, attempting to drag her down. "Save them or join them." "No," Alex shouted, lunging forward to grab her arm. But the shadows lashed out, wrapping around him, squeezing with a vengeance. "Alex!" Her voice cracked under the weight of horror. Jessica's own body felt tethered to the spot, each movement draining her energy. "Fight, Jess! Don't let it take you." His desperate plea pushed her further into a fight-or-flight panic. The creature's gaze affixed on her, an intensity that made her skin crawl. "You know the truth. They were never supposed to be here. They were lured by the lies. You feel it inside you." Panic clawed at Jessica's thoughts, pulling her further away from clarity. Memories surged like a tidal wave. Her own childhood fears of abandonment mixed with the suffocating waves of guilt. A fear so universal, so raw. "Stop!" she yelled, breaking the paralysis gripping her heart. "What lies?" she demanded, her voice rising and falling like a siren. "What did you do to them? What happened?" But instead of answering, the creature let out a bellow that vibrated through her bones, sending shards of terror coursing through her. "They were promised freedom," it crooned. "Freedom by accepting their darkest desires, but with a price. Now they're part of me." The shadows around Jessica shifted once more, forming fleeting images of a once happy school, filled with laughter and life. Then, they distorted into that same grotesque landscape she had glimpsed before, children's faces fading into agony. "Answer me," she screamed, tears brimming in her eyes. "You want my essence? Why? It can silence the darkness inside me," it screeched, tendrils flexing impatiently. "And when it does, you'll wish you had never asked." A bolt of realization ignited within her, she couldn't just wield the key. She must fully embody its light. She must become the very essence that could vanquish this malevolence. Teeth gritted, she stared into the abyss where hope had begun to falter. What if there's another way? She whispered, her mind racing. If you gain my essence, will you release the children? Laughter poured forth from the creature, slithering like smoke between them. They cannot be freed unless you offer yourself willingly, and then you must join them. No. The words spilled from her lips, fierce and defiant. Her thoughts raced. She couldn't trust this thing. But she had to know. The answers dangled just beyond her reach, taunting her. I'll save them, but I want the truth first. What's in room 6? In that moment, the creature halted, the shadows falling silent as if the question stung. Room 6 is where it all began, where the darkness was birthed. If you seek the truth, enter. But know this, not all who enter return whole. The shadows writhed, as an unholy wind whipped through the room, sending flames flickering out and plunging them into darkness. Jessica gripped the key tighter, her heart pounding against her ribcage as raw fear mingled with an insane drive to uncover what lay ahead. Alex, we have to go. Where? He shouted above the din, struggling against the shadows that seemed determined to pull him apart. Room 6. And just like that, the walls of the building began to tremble again, threatening to cave in around them as the shadows surged, eager to reclaim their prey. Heat rose like a wave, and Jessica felt that this was no longer just about saving the children. It was about survival. But as they raced forward, she cast a glance over her shoulder. Would the truth they uncover save them? Or unleash something far worse? A screech pierced the air, and the creature's laughter echoed behind them, taunting. Run if you can. Fate awaits you both. And with that, they stumbled into the suffocating blackness, racing toward what could be their salvation or their doom. Jessica's heart raced as she bolted toward room 6, Alex by her side, shadowy tendrils snapping at their heels like a pack of ravenous wolves. They collided against the door, its surface cool and unyielding beneath their palms. Breathless and on edge, she fumbled for the key, its icy promise now a lifeline against the formidable darkness pursuing them. Now, Alex urged, his eyes wide with urgency, glancing back at the swirling shadows eager to engulf them. She thrust the key into the lock, hesitating for a fraction of a second as uncertainty gripped her. Would this be their salvation or their doom? The door burst open, revealing an oppressive darkness beyond, as if the room itself was alive, breathing in anticipation. From within came the bitter scent of ash and something far more sinister. They stepped inside, the threshold sealing behind them with a resounding thud that sent a shiver coursing through Jessica. The shadows outside writhed angrily, shrinking back as if recoiling from the light filtering through the remnants of shattered windows. Stay close, Jessica said, gripping Alex's arm tightly. The remnants of their surroundings told a story of decay and lost innocence. Charred desks, singed papers, and cracked walls whispered secrets of pain, loss, and betrayal. Yet in the heart of this horror lay a flicker of hope as they ventured deeper into the room. Jessica's thoughts raced, piecing together the chilling tales Mr. Collins had shared. This is where it all began, she whispered. The fire, the darkness that trapped them. The room pulsated with energy, and Jessica felt the air thicken. Shapes flickered at the edges of her vision, ghostly figures of the lost children drawing closer, their expressions flickering between despair and longing. Their eyes glistened with unspoken wishes, the echo of lives unfulfilled. Then she spotted it, a strange symbol etched into the wall, glinting faintly as though calling to her. The chalkboard, its surface marred with desperate scribbles of past students. This key, it has to unlock something here, she breathed, fingers tracing over the faded chalk. But how do we find out what? In that moment, all sound faded, and the heavy silence wrapped around them. It felt as if the souls trapped within were listening, waiting, and a cold, clammy sensation slithered along the back of her neck. What if opening this door unlocks something worse? Alex questioned, the fear threading through his voice. We have to take that risk. Jessica fired back, her resolve firm. With a deep breath, she gripped the key more tightly and whispered, "What were you trapped for? What do you want?" The shadows flickered ominously. "To be free," they sighed in unison. The sound hollow yet strangely melodic as Jessica focused. Words she couldn't grasp began to swirl in her mind, a crescendo of chaos. The symbols on the chalkboard, each one seemed to resonate with trapped sorrow, an entangled web of pain and lost desires that tightened like a noose. "Are you willing to trade your essence for theirs?" echoed a voice from the dark, pulling Jessica's attention. It was the creature. She sensed its presence lurking just beyond the edge of light. "Sacrifice must be made." "No, I can't," Jessica whispered, the very thought tearing at her insides. "What do you entail by that?" In this moment it hissed, "It is either they remain shackled or you become one of us." The pressure mounted, the shadows tightened their grip, forcing her to confront the very core of her being. Would she willingly join the ranks of the lost to save Alex? There had to be another way. "Jessica." Alex's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "We need to focus on the children. What if we need to break the cycle?" She interrupted, gathering courage. "They must not suffer the same fate. If we do nothing, they'll remain trapped for eternity." With a determined shove, she turned to the chalkboard. "This pain ends here. I will not let your darkness consume us." The key pulsed warmly in her hand, resonating with each beat of her heart. Just as she prepared to plunge it into the void of the symbols, the shadows swelled, frantic whispers piercing the air around them. "Don't," they mourned. "You don't know." With a single breath, she plunged the key into the depths of the chalkboard and twisted. A sudden rush of light pouring forth like a tidal wave, illuminating every shadow. The room erupted in chaos. The spirits wailed as their forms twisted in and out of sight, each lost soul clawing at the fragments of freedom Jessica had just unleashed. "Hold on," she shouted, feeling Alex's grip tighten on her arm as he leaned closer. Across the storm of light, images began to swirl, a classroom filled with laughter, suddenly igniting then exploding into flames. The air crackled with the horrors of a past they had tried to lock away. Suddenly, the howling din of the shadows hushed, their collective anguish stilling like a ripple across water. In that moment of suspended dread, Jessica cried out to them, filled with empathy, compassion threatening to fracture her resolve. "I'm here," she murmured. "I'll set you free, I promise." And then she took a step forward, forcing the light's warmth to flow outward. "But I need to know what's in room 6? The shadows surged back, an overwhelming force seeking to cocoon her in despair. Yet she pushed through as the truth faced her squarely. The sacrifice would hinge on her understanding. "No," the creature hissed, its voice crackling like an old radio. "You are too late for freedom. A trade is necessary." But amid her panic, Jessica's heart surged with purpose. "I am not trading my life for the lives of lost souls." With all her strength, she repelled the darkness. "You can't have me. I choose to fight." The shadows roared as a blinding light enveloped her. And in that moment Jessica felt a rush of energy, hope filling the void where fear had lingered. "Together," she called, reaching out to Alex, their clasped hands solidifying the bond of love forged against the encroaching void. "Together," he shouted back. They focused on the swirling spirits around them, their cries falling silent but resonating deep within their hearts. As the light expanded and dark shadows crumbled away, the essence of hope surged through the room like wildfire, igniting the spirits of the lost children. "Thank you," they whispered, echoing around them, "for freeing us, for not giving in." Jessica felt each presence wrap around her like a warm embrace, the shadows dissolving into brilliant rays of light. What lay back, beyond the door, was no longer just darkness. Something new had emerged, a thread of hope woven into the very fabric of hope gained. The room transformed, each wall reflecting memories. The classroom no longer a cage but a sanctuary. The voices of the children rose in harmony, a symphony of gratitude reverberating against the walls. As peace settled around them, Jessica and Alex stepped into the blinding brilliance together. "We did it," he breathed, relief washing over him, mirroring her own heart's return to calm. "Now, let us go home," Jessica replied, feeling an overwhelming warmth wash over her. Glancing back at room 6, a bright light burned within, a reminder that even in despair, love had the power to heal. With their hearts intertwined, Jessica and Alex stepped into the waiting world beyond. The shadows once hounded their every footfall, but now they left behind only a whisper, a bittersweet reminder of resilience and the power of hope as the cool air enveloped them outside. A soft dawn broke on the horizon, bathing their town in golden light. Jessica smiled, heart fuller than it had been in days. She turned to Alex, who mirrored her joy. Together, she whispered, knowing their journey was far from over, to rebuild, to triumph, to tell the story of everything they had faced. And in that moment, freedom echoed in the quiet. The bonds of the lost children were no longer tethered to the haunted past. A long battle had concluded, but each dawn would bring with it a new horizon, one shaped by hope, by love. One where they could shine light into the darkness, binding them forever. Now take a moment to reflect on these final moments, and as you savor every heartbeat of hope, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about everything that just unfolded. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is the moment to show your support.